We have Speaker Pro Tem David Meade with the House of Representatives here in Kentucky with us on this edition of Farm to Frankfort. Representative Meade, it's great to have you. Always a friend of Farm Bureau. I know you're here in our office often. Commodity legislative update. I know you've been to speak to our Young Farmer conferences. A great friend of Farm Bureau, great friend of rural Kentucky. So thanks for being with us. We'll just kick it off a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, what district you represent, things like that.
Well, thanks for having me, Kyle. I am originally from Lincoln County. Lived my whole life in Lincoln County. Grew up there, and after graduating high school, went off to college and graduated from University of Kentucky with an electrical engineering technology degree. So I spent most of my adult career early on in factories and in industrial sites across the country, installing conveyor system engineering, those type things, industrial machinery. And later on moved into real estate, went into auctioneering and real estate brokerage. And now I guess I'm more of an entrepreneur and doing legislative work. So I grew up on farms back home. We had a cow-calf operation in one part of the county and then a feeder cattle operation in another. And after I got out of college and got out on my own, I started a small farm and did some feeder calf work there, but then switched over to cow-calf, and that's what I still do today.
Yeah, well, hey, luckily the cow-calf hopefully is the one kind of bright spot.
That's the beautiful spot right now in agriculture. Cattle prices are finally gotten to where the farmers can make a little profit with the cattle industry.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
It's a good time to be in it. That's right.
Hopefully that stays
There's
strong.
been some hard times, that's for sure.
Yes, there has.
Building up until the last year or so, it has been pretty tough. Yeah. And when other things have been really good, the cattle industry was kind of down. So hopefully this can stay for a while here. But we appreciate you and what you do and understanding agriculture. You know, someone that's been there and done that. And we just appreciate your leadership and what you do for our organization and agriculture all across the state.
Well, thank you, Eddie. Appreciate you saying that.
And we are fortunate in Kentucky to have strong leadership. You're obviously a member of leadership, being the Speaker Pro Tem in the House. And we have 138 legislators, and we still do have those rural roots. People have ties, whether it was them or their parents or grandparents, to agriculture. We are very fortunate in Kentucky. And we are talking here just a few days after we wrapped up the 2025 session. It was a short session, but there was no short amount of bills. I think it was probably close to a record numbers of bills filed. Tell us a little bit about what went on this session, some of the priorities for you, for this leadership team and for this General Assembly.
Well, it was a short session, but I think that sometimes these shorter sessions are a little more stressful than the budget sessions are because there's so many bills coming at you. You've got half the time to look through those and pass bills. So it gets, like I said, pretty stressful, especially towards the end of session. But I think we did some good things this session coming out. The first thing we did right off the bat was lowered the personal income tax here in the state. We've been doing that since 2018. We were at 6% starting off in 18. We lowered it to 5% that year, and then came in 2021 and put in triggers that would allow us to start moving that income tax down. Those triggers are based on economic factors, how much money we have in budget reserve trust fund and how much revenue is coming into the state. And if we hit those triggers, we're allowed to move that down 0.5% each year. So we've been moving that down some this year. We were able to do it again, moved it down to 3.5%. So I think that was the biggest thing that we did. Another thing that I think was very important for us was House Bill 6. That's the REINS Act. What that does is says that when the executive branch passes regulations down to us as constituents in the state, if it costs more than $500,000, they can't do that without General Assembly approval. And of course, regulatory power was given to the governor back when the General Assembly was only coming in every other year to allow him to continue operating government. And now that we're in every year, it's not as necessary as it used to be. And since a lot of regulatory authority is given through statute, we decided that we were going to make sure that we were being good stewards of the taxpayers' money. And it doesn't matter what governor's in office. It seems like sometimes regulations can get out of hand. And so I think the more input you have on that, the better off you are. And then one other piece of legislation I think that was good that affects us all in general, but especially farmers, I think, as well, as the Kentucky Waters Act, that where we matched federal guidelines when it come to that. And the reason for that is because our regulations, I think, had gone a little bit too far. When you're having issues with development and you're having to permit drainage ditches and things like that, we've gone a little bit too far. And I think that for the farmers, some of our regulations, if farm ponds were spilling over at the time, there was excessive regulations that were put on our farmers for that, and so we tried to rein some of that in as well.
Yeah, so it's perfect timing. I'm putting together our final report that will probably come out around the same time that this airs, and all three of those, President Melton, are there in our Farm Bureau bills that we supported that passed. So we did have policy on all three of those issues. So thank you all for your work on that.
I think the work y'all did with lowering the income tax rate, the way that y'all put those triggers in to make it to where that you're on sound footing with what you do with that. I think that's one of the things that y'all have done over the years that I think is great, and I think it's going to be great for economic development here in the state and things that we can do here in Kentucky, and people want to come to Kentucky and live here and do that. So I commend y'all on the work that y'all have done with that in the legislature to make that, to help people keep some of their own money, and yet that y'all are being physically responsible with those tax dollars.
Well, there's always talk that you need to compete with surrounding states, and of course Tennessee is a no income tax state. You have Florida that's no income tax. Texas has lowered theirs way down there. Indiana has now lowered theirs. But I think what's going to make us unique and us the most competitive in Kentucky is that we've done this by having those triggers in place, and they work. Some of the naysayers have said, how are you going to make sure that you have the revenue? Well, if we don't meet the triggers, we can't lower the income tax.
That's
we
right.
didn't meet the triggers this year to be able to lower it next year. So it shows that the plan works. But with us being able to come down to 3.5% right now, we're not having to raise sales tax like those other states have. So that's going to make us more competitive, not having that higher sales tax, but that lower income tax rate.
And important to our membership, and always has been, Eddie, is property tax as well. And we always appreciate maintaining those provisions from House Bill 44 going back to 1979 and not having to adjust things around that legislation either. I think this disciplined approach is very responsible, and it's working, like you say. And I believe another bill that we did want to talk a little bit about, we had some of our priority language was added to it, was House Bill 775, which was the revenue bill is kind of what it's termed as, and I believe it did also make some adjustments to those triggers in income tax as well. But kind of most important to our priority that Eddie and this leadership team kicked off the Farmland Transition Initiative, it was around how can we do things to protect farmland and incentivize that staying in production agriculture. We're losing over 100,000 acres a year in Kentucky alone. So our suggestion, and we worked with Chairman the House Ag Committee, Myron Dawson, on House Bill 703, was the original kind of bill language that opened the selling farmer tax credit, which has been around since 2019. It was capped to beginning farmers, and it was very tightly defined. And the language you all added to House Bill 775 that the General Assembly added expanded that definition of beginning farmer, but it also allowed the sale to all active farmers to qualify. And that was a priority for us this session, and we appreciate your all's work to get that done, because in our opinion, it's not an opinion, I think it's fact. Land is the most, and you know this being in real estate and auctioneering, land is the most valuable asset that our membership and the farmers own, and doing things to incentivize that to stay in farmland is very important to our membership. So thank you.
Absolutely.
For that.
We, of course, several years ago, we're trying to get young farmers in, new farmers into the business, and that incentive was created to try to allow them the ability to purchase farms and get going. But over the time, as you all have come to us, we've seen we need to hold on to that farmland as much as we possibly can. So that now that credit has been expanded to all farmers, and to be able to make sure that family farms continue to function and are passed on to other folks who want to continue the farming tradition.
Yeah, and I do think it's important. Sorry,
No,
I didn't
go
want to
ahead.
interrupt.
No.
I just wanted to say, timing-wise, it couldn't have been better. You all had just passed 775. It was going through, and at the same time, at the federal level,
That's right.
Senator McConnell actually rolled out a bill at the federal level, and a big part of that, one of the first questions his team asked of us was, well, are states doing this? How many states do it? There was 10 to 12 states that
Right.
had something similar, but it was important to him for us to get it right here at the state level, and then he rolled out his bill at the federal level as well, Eddie.
When you can tie those two together, I think that if you can incentivize someone, people, we often say all the time that the farmers are land rich and cash poor. And so with these two things, if someone does want to retire and doesn't have a family member that wants to take that on, to incentivize someone to sell that to an active farmer, because we've got examples all across the state of people that have young farmers that someone's given the opportunity to keep it in production agriculture and incentivize those folks to be able to do that. And I hear all the time, and I'm sure you do too, well, I would sell my farm, but I don't want to pay those capital gains taxes on the federal level. So hopefully if we can get something done in Washington, we can couple these two things together and incentivize people to keep it in production agriculture, because I do think in the future that, and we're all about private property rights. If someone has that farm, we want them to be able to do what they want to with it, but help them want to keep it in production agriculture is important to us as an organization. And bringing these young people in, if they own that land, they're more profitable than they do if they have to rent it or whatever.
Absolutely.
So another major issue we hear a lot about, I know you do too from your constituents, is around rural infrastructure, whether it be rural water systems, rural roads and bridges. I know you all been working on those issues as well the past couple sessions, but there was some things done this session as well. You care to talk a little bit about those?
Last session, of course, during the budget sessions, when we placed the money in the budget for the water infrastructure projects and also for rural road projects, the money that we have allocated for this year, that we allocated, but now we budget for it, or we placed the projects in the budget this year. The water projects across the state, we did those by priority, by the need of those and the repair for those. That is how we chose which projects we were going to use. Also with roads, about the same way. All those roads are scored. They're scored typically 1 through 10, 10 being the worst of the roads. And so we went in and tried to take as many of those 10s out of the equation as possible. Now, what we're talking about, though, on the road fund is more of the discretionary money that the governor used to get. That's what we call it, was discretionary money. That is now, he's now given a certain amount, but now the General Assembly controls the rest of the amount, and we choose those projects. And the reason for that is because, as you all probably saw in the past, didn't matter who the governor was at the time, politics got to play a little bit into that on what roads were chosen. So we tried to take the politics out of it and just go by the statistics of what roads really need to be done, and that's how we chose those projects as well this year.
Yeah, we appreciate your investment in rural Kentucky. I know a lot of our members reach out to us on those issues, and we appreciate you all addressing those. I want to turn a little bit to another issue we're working a whole lot on at the federal level. It's a priority issue for our national affairs, is around, I'm trying to think of the new phrase. We've always called it sustainable aviation fuel.
Right.
I think now it's alternative jet fuel.
Alternative jet fuel.
So
that's right.
it's kind of being rebranded a little bit, but the facts are the same, and that's that we have a lot of corn, soybeans, canola commodities that can be used as fuels, ethanol, biodiesel, and we need to use more of that here domestically. I think that's really the main priority and the driving force behind it, and this alternative jet fuel has become a very important thing in Kentucky because of the companies we have, like an Amazon, like a UPS. South of us into Memphis is a FedEx, DHL. We have a lot of entities at our airports that use a lot of this fuel. There was some federal tax credits that we're working on at the federal level, but it was also important to show that we care about it here at the state level and getting that policy correct. And I just want our members to know that you took the lead on that. We had the opportunity to work with you this session. It was a non-budget session, and this is kind of a budget issue. Yeah. But I did want to say thank you for your work on that issue, and I've mentioned it to our commodity legislative preview. Probably my favorite thing about working with you on that is I know where your priority is obviously helping business and entities, but it's also making sure we help the farmer and using those commodities into the final product. So thank you for your work on that issue.
Well, I appreciate it. I think the biggest thing for that this year was for us to show that we are serious about doing something in that area. It's an area that helps not only our largest industry in the state, which is aviation and aerospace engineering, things like that's our top industry, of course. But we've also helping the farmers in the same way, in the same bill. And so by giving them that ability to do that, I think the tax credit, the way we originally had written it, was that it was going to be a 10-year credit. For the first 5 years, they were able to get their product any place in the United States that they thought it was necessary. But after that 5th year, they had to start getting it only in Kentucky. And the reason for that is because we felt in 5 years we would have our program up and running here in the state. Gives us plenty of time, and then after that, only our Kentucky farmers will be benefiting from that. So we're going to continue to work on that, and as you said, it is a budget issue. So we got a long way down the road this year with that. We had some language there at the end that we put in place to show that we're serious about it, but we're going to keep working on that and try to get that full credit in there next year.
Yeah, and I thought unique to Kentucky compared to some of the other states that have done things, they are allowing products to be imported in, used cooking oil, sugar cane ethanol, and the fact that even from day one, it had to be products that was grown and produced, made in the United States. Right off the bat showed that, we're going to be using things we grow domestically, and then shifting that specific to Kentucky, so important. And we're going to keep working on it too.
We'll be there to partner with you on that as we move forward, because it is important. And anytime we can bring an end user into Kentucky for any of our products, we know that it helps us. It helps the basis on those grains. So we appreciate your work on that.
I appreciate that, absolutely. And we have a few refineries here in the state, and it was going to benefit them as well. They were going to be making the product, the jet fuel for our companies, and so we have them on board as well. It's going to benefit our state in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, well, we're there to keep working with you on it and working with the other stakeholders. I appreciate all the stakeholders too. They certainly realize the value that Kentucky agriculture brought to the table as well. So appreciate them, which transitions us to kind of the next question. Around next month or June, I guess, so 2 months, we'll start the interim session. So part-time legislator, but being in leadership, it's full-time, I know that. But we'll get kicked off in the interim. Are there any big issues around agriculture or rural Kentucky that you expect to see this interim? I know it's kind of fluid, but anything big that you see?
Most of the things that we will discuss will be further on into the interim. September, October, that's when the priorities will start fleshing themselves out as we get into discussions through the committees. But this is going to be a budget year coming up. Budget discussions have already started and will continue throughout the year, but starting in about June or July, they'll really ramp up, and that's when the entire budget teams will be working, moving up towards January. So it's going to be an ongoing thing, and the budget takes up most of our time when it comes to that. Of course, again, in that budget, we'll be going back through the road programs and all of our tax incentives. Everything that we're doing in the state comes through that budget, and we're going to be back doing that again as well. Of course, as we just talked about, the alternative jet fuels, that's a budget issue that we'll be discussing as we go along. But as for what our priorities are going to be right now, it's going to take a while for us to get all that fleshed out.
Yeah. Let the fun stuff begin.
That's right. Budgets always make it interesting to get what needs to be in there. So.
Yeah, so the kind of last question I have, Eddie, is a big one now. So you're an auctioneer. You're a member of KAA, the Auctioneer Association. Every August we auction off a country ham, and you're there every single year. We appreciate your support of that event and being there. Do you ever find yourself sitting in the audience, kind of auctioneering alongside the grand champion auctioneer?
Yeah, I might move my mouth a little bit or something at times, but I feel like I got that one. I kind of got messed over on, because whenever I was the auctioneering champion in 2008, and up until that time, the president of the association sold the ham. And so when I was champion, the president was selling the ham, and then I became president in 2011, and we switched it from the president to the champion selling it. So I didn't get to sell it either time.
There you go. Well, maybe someday there'll be an opportunity. The guy that wins it may have something come up and can't be there, and maybe we can get you to fill in for us.
I think I'm okay at this point, though.
It is an exciting
Good to have
day
a
for
backup
us.
anyway.
That's right. Yeah, we'll pencil you in as the backup, so you're on deck. But it is an exciting time, and I do think we really enjoy that relationship we have with KAA and their members, and it does bring a lot of excitement. In the last couple of years, we've had several years, we've had younger auctioneers that have won, and
That's
I think
right.
they've told me that it's been a great opportunity for them, which they don't keep the money. Obviously, that all goes to charity. We don't keep it. They don't get a cut of it, but they did. They've told me in passing and at other Farm Bureau events they appreciate the exposure because we bring them in at 5:30 a.m. that morning, and they're on Louisville News, and we appreciate that partnership we have with KAA. And sorry it didn't work out for you back then.
Oh, that's okay.
Well, with that, any just kind of closing words of wisdom for our membership?
No, I think that one of the most important things is just to stay involved, stay politically involved. If you don't know your state rep, if you don't know your senator, get to know them on a personal level, get their phone numbers, stay in touch with them. And that's the best thing for us when we're passing legislation is to know what our districts need and to hear from constituents back home. So I would just encourage everyone to stay in contact. And you guys do a great job as well. I need to say that for all your members. You're in Frankfort. You have a big presence there, and we get a lot of our information from you when it comes to our farming issues and some of our insurance issues as well.
Well, we appreciate your leadership and what you do, and you've always been an open door for us as an organization, and we appreciate that. And of course, Kyle doing the work that he does up there, and Anne Marie on the insurance side. Just appreciate your willingness to work with them, and again, taking time to talk to us in times when we come to town. So appreciate the work that you do.
Well, I appreciate you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.